The enormous hall of the Galactic Council was silent as the vote concluded. The holographic display showed the results. 126 species voted for the embargo, 22 against, with 13 abstentions. Ambassador Lyrax of the Zentari smiled, his 4 eyes blinking in satisfaction as he looked around at his fellow council members. "The vote is final," he announced, his translator converting his clicking speech into the standard council language. "Earth will be isolated. No trade, no communication, no technology exchange. The quarantine begins immediately." In the shadows of the observer gallery, John Miller felt his heart sink. He had spent 3 years secretly watching these meetings, unofficially representing human interests after the council had refused formal contact. Now, humanity's worst fear had come true. Lyrax continued, "Humans are unpredictable and dangerous. Their history is filled with violence. Their technology advances too quickly without proper ethical frameworks. This quarantine is for the safety of all civilized species." John slipped away from the gallery. He needed to warn Earth before the Council's ships established the quarantine boundary. He hurried to the small ship hidden in the civilian docking area of the massive space station. His hand shook as he started the launch sequence. On the council floor, diplomat Azra Thol watched with concern. The blue-skinned diplomat from the Mira Federation had studied humans more closely than most. She believed this decision was wrong, but her people had voted with the majority. "Ambassador Lyrax," she said, rising from her seat, "have we truly considered all options? Humans have made remarkable progress in just the last century. Their art, music, and problem-solving abilities could benefit us all." Lyrax waved a dismissive hand. "Your sympathy for primitive species is well known, diplomat Ezra Thol. The decision is made. The quarantine ships are already moving into position." Across the galaxy, John's ship pushed its engines to their limits. He had to reach the emergency communication relay before the Council blocked it. He typed his message quickly. "Council voted for complete embargo. Quarantine ships deploying. You have less than 2 Earth days before we're cut off." This is not a drill. Back on Earth, the message arrived at NASA headquarters in Houston. Alarms sounded as officials gathered in the crisis room. The message was sent to all major governments. In Washington, D.C., the president called an emergency meeting. "What options do we have?" She asked the room filled with military leaders, scientists, and diplomats. "We could try fighting the quarantine ships," General Pete Willis suggested. Dr. Karen Fisher, the chief scientist, shook her head. "Based on what John has told us about their technology, we wouldn't stand a chance. They're at least 2 centuries ahead of us." "Then what do we do? Just accept being prisoners on our own planet?" the president asked. In the corner of the room, Dr. Alan Peterson looked up from his tablet. "What if we don't fight them? And we don't accept it either." Everyone turned to him. "What if we just leave?" he said. "Leave Earth?" someone asked with disbelief. "Yes," Alan said. "The Council expects us to either fight and lose, or stay put and accept their rule. What if we do neither? What if humanity simply goes elsewhere?" Silence fell over the room. The president leaned forward. "Explain." Meanwhile, in space, the quarantine was taking shape. Massive council ships positioned themselves in a network around Earth's solar system. Special devices activated, creating a barrier that would prevent any ship from entering or leaving. Inside the council chamber, Azra Thol watched the quarantine deployment on the main screen. She felt deeply troubled. Something told her this decision would have consequences no one had predicted. "Is something wrong, diplomat?" asked a colleague. Azra Thol shook her head slowly. "I fear we may have just made a terrible mistake." On Earth, as the barrier closed around them, humanity began to plan not resistance, but exodus. 2 weeks after the quarantine began, leaders from every nation on Earth gathered in Geneva. The meeting room was tense as Samantha Wright, the NASA director, stood to speak. "We have confirmed the quarantine is complete," she said, pointing to images on the large screen. Council ships surround our solar system. Their energy barrier stops all signals and vessels. Colonel Frank Garcia, with his gray hair and stern face, spoke next. Our military options are limited. The Council's technology is far beyond ours. A direct fight would be suicide. The room filled with worried voices until Dr. Alan Peterson stood up. He was tall and thin with kind eyes behind simple glasses. We don't need to fight, he said. As I suggested before, we can leave. Leave to where? Asked the Chinese president. The barrier surrounds our entire solar system. Ellen smiled. Yes, but they don't expect us to go far. The Council thinks we need their technology for real space travel. They're wrong. He showed slides of secret research. For years, we've been working on new dry systems, the Carter-Dias theory of space folding, the Russians' gravity manipulation studies, India's work on energy conservation. Apart, these were just theories. Together, they can become our salvation. The room grew quiet as he continued. The Council believes we're centuries away from true deep space travel. We're not. We just need to combine our knowledge and work together. After 3 days of debate, the vote was unanimous. The Exodus Initiative was born. Over the next month, the world changed. Old enemies became partners. Military factories began building ship parts instead of weapons. Schools started teaching space survival skills. Farming research focused on growing food during long space journeys. In a hidden facility in the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Lucy Hammond looked at the engine design on her screen. She had barely slept in days. Will it work? Asked her assistant. It has to, she said simply. Across the world in Beijing, engineer Steve Wong tested new hull materials that could withstand decades in space. In Moscow, scientists perfected water recycling systems that could work for generations. The Council's observation posts reported that humans seemed to be accepting their fate. They noticed less air traffic, reduced energy use, and fewer radio signals. What they didn't realize was that resources were being diverted to hidden construction sites. 6 months passed. In orbit around Earth, invisible to Council sensors thanks to new cloaking technology, the first frame of a massive ship took shape. Engineer Ben Martinez floated outside it, checking the connections. It's beautiful, he said over his radio. More ships followed, small at first, then larger. Underground factories worked day and night. The greatest construction project in human history continued in secret. On farms across the world, people grew extra food for storage. In homes, families sorted through belongings, choosing what few items they could take to the stars. The Clark family in Ohio packed photo albums and heirloom quilts. 8-year-old Billy Clark asked, "Will we ever come back, Dad?" His father looked up at the night sky. "I don't know, son, but we'll make a new home somewhere out there." 1 year after the quarantine began, President Laura Kim addressed the United Nations. Phase 1 is complete, she announced. The scout ships and first colony vessels are ready. The generation ships will be finished within 4 years. We have identified target star systems beyond Council space. In the Council chambers, routine reports noted that humans appeared to be struggling with isolation. Resource usage was down. Productivity had decreased. Ambassador Lirax was pleased. "See," he told Ezra Thul. "They're learning their place." Ezra Thul wasn't convinced. "Has anyone done a detailed scan recently? Something about these reports feels wrong." Lirax laughed. "You worry too much. Humans are primitive. What could they possibly do?" On Earth, in shipyards hidden beneath ocean waters and inside hollowed mountains, humanity prepared their answer. 5 years passed since the quarantine began. From space, Earth looked different. The great cities were quieter. Many coastal areas showed less light at night. Council observation posts reported that humans were struggling with their isolation, just as predicted. But the truth was very different. In orbit around Earth, hidden by Ben Martinez's cloaking technology, 50 massive ships now floated in formation. Each one was over a mile long and could hold 20,000 people. They were beautiful, with smooth lines and giant gardens visible through clear sections of the hull. Ben floated outside the flagship, fixing a small problem with the cloaking device. He smiled with pride as he worked. The ships were almost ready. "How's it going out there?" asked Captain Olivia Barnes through his radio. She would command the flagship, named New Dawn. "Almost done," Ben replied. "The Council satellites will pass overhead in an hour. We'll be invisible to them." Below on Earth, the Johnson family packed their final bags. Only essential items could go on the ships. Each person was allotted one small bag of personal things. Mary Johnson held a photo of her parents, who had died before the quarantine. She carefully wrapped it in a soft cloth and placed it in her bag. Her husband, Paul, watched with sad eyes. "I wish they could have seen this," he said. "They would have been proud." Their son, Kevin, now 15, looked out the window at the night sky. "Do you think we'll ever find aliens who actually like us?" "I hope so," Mary said. "The galaxy is big. The Council can't be the only ones out there." In a hidden base under the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Lucy Hammond checked the final engine tests. The new drive system was ready. It would take the ships faster and farther than anything the Council had. "All systems green," her assistant reported. Lucy nodded. "Send the report to command. Tell them we're ready." Around the world, similar reports came in. Food stores were complete. Water recycling systems worked perfectly. Medical facilities were fully stocked. The ships were ready. In Washington, D.C., President Laura Kim met with the world leaders one last time. "The first wave leaves in 3 days," she announced. 1 million of our people will go. The second wave will follow in 6 months. Eventually, all who wish to leave can do so. "What about those who stay?" asked the Russian president. "They will keep Earth alive," Laura said. "And perhaps someday, when the Council realizes their mistake, Earth can rejoin the galaxy." On the Moon, mining machines worked day and night, gathering last-minute resources. Council observers had noticed the activity, but thought humans were just mining for Earth's needs. They didn't realize the materials went directly to the hidden ships. In the Council chambers, a junior analyst named Trelk looked at the latest reports from Earth. The young alien had only recently joined the Council staff, but something bothered him about the data. "Ambassador Lyrax," he said, approaching the senior official. "I notice strange patterns in Earth's energy usage. It doesn't match a struggling civilization." Lyrax barely looked up from his desk. "Humans are unpredictable. Their behavior doesn't need to make sense." "But sir," Trelk continued, "the moon mining operations have increased by 300% in the last year. Where are those resources going?" "Enough," Lyrax snapped. "The quarantine is working. That's all that matters." Trelk left, frustrated. He decided to contact someone who might listen. Diplomat Azrathul. On Earth, final preparations were underway. Families said goodbye to those staying behind. Some cried, knowing they might never see Earth again. Others felt only excitement for the journey ahead. Then Martinez finished his work on the cloaking system and returned inside the flagship. In 3 days, the greatest journey in human history would begin. The stars waited, and the Galactic Council still had no idea what was coming. Trelk waited nervously outside Diplomat Azrathul's office. His datapad contained all the strange readings he had collected about Earth. As a junior analyst, meeting with such an important council member was unusual, but his concerns were too big to ignore. The door opened, and Azrathul welcomed him in. Her blue skin looked tired, but her eyes were kind. "What brings you here, Analyst Trelk?" she asked. Trelk placed his datapad on her desk. "Something strange is happening on Earth, Diplomat. Look at these energy readings. They show big power use in remote areas, but the cities are using less power." Azrathul studied the charts. "That is odd." "And the moon mining," Trelk continued. "Humans have removed almost 12% of the moon's outer crust in 5 years. But where are those materials going? Earth's construction projects don't account for even half of it. Ezra Thull felt a chill. Have you shared this with Ambassador Lyrax? Yes, but he dismissed my concerns. Ezra Thull stood up. I need to see more data. Can you get me detailed scans of Earth's orbit? The last full scan was 3 years ago, Trelk admitted. The Council reduced monitoring after the second year of quarantine. Then request a new scan immediately, she ordered. On Earth, the countdown had begun. In 24 hours, the first wave would depart. Inside the flagship New Dawn, Captain Olivia Barnes checked all systems one final time. Life support at 100%, reported her first officer. Engine status, Olivia asked. All green. Dr. Hammond's drive system is ready. Olivia looked at the crew on the bridge. They were nervous but excited. Tomorrow we make history, she told them. Tomorrow humanity reaches for the stars. Below on Earth, final boarding was underway. The Johnson family waited in line with thousands of others. Security was tight, not against outside threats, but to prevent overcrowding on the ships. ID please, said a guard at the checkpoint. Hall Johnson handed over their family's papers. After verification, they were directed to a transport that would take them to their assigned ship, the New Horizon. As they rose through the atmosphere in the transport, Kevin Johnson pressed his face against the window. Goodbye, Earth, he whispered. In her office, Ezra Thull reviewed the new scan data Trelk had obtained. At first, it showed nothing unusual, just Earth and its moon, exactly as expected. Run it through the energy detection filter, she suggested. Trelk applied the filter, and suddenly the image changed. 50 massive objects appeared in Earth's orbit, previously invisible. What are those? Trelk gasped. Ezra Thull zoomed in on one of the objects. It was clearly a ship, larger than any human vessel the Council had ever seen. We need to call an emergency session, she said, her voice urgent. Now. But Council procedures were slow. Calling an emergency session required approval from 3 senior ambassadors. By the time Ezra Thull secured the needed permissions, 12 hours had passed. On the New Dawn, Captain Barnes received a message from Earth Command. The Council is scanning us with new equipment. The message read, they may have detected our ships. Recommend moving departure forward. Olivia made her decision quickly. Alert all ships. We launch in 1 hour. Across the fleet, preparations accelerated. Some families were still boarding, rushing now to make it in time. In the council chambers, ambassadors gathered slowly, many annoyed at the sudden meeting. This better be important, muttered one. Ambassador Lyrax arrived last, looking irritated. Why have you called us here? Diplomat Ezra Thull. Ezra Thull connected her data pad to the main screen. Because the humans are leaving. The image appeared, showing the 50 massive ships now moving away from Earth. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. Impossible, Lyrax whispered. But as they watched, the ships accelerated, heading directly toward the quarantine barrier. Stop them, someone shouted. But it was already too late. The 50 human ships approached the quarantine barrier. On the flagship New Dawn, Captain Olivia Barnes stood tall on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the view screen. Barrier in range in 30 seconds, reported her navigator. Olivia opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships prepare for barrier crossing. Activate Hammond drives on my mark. The quarantine barrier glowed ahead of them, a shimmering wall of energy that had kept Earth isolated for 5 years. No known technology could pass through it. But humans had created something new. Mark, Olivia commanded. On every ship, engineers activated the Hammond drives. The ships began to glow with a strange blue light. The energy built up around their hulls, creating a field that interacted with the barrier in ways the Council had never imagined. In the Council chambers, the ambassadors watched in shock as the human ships reached the barrier. They'll be destroyed, Ambassador Lyrax said confidently. But instead of stopping, The ships passed right through the barrier as if it wasn't there. The Hammond drives created a pocket of altered space that simply slipped between the energy fields. "Impossible," shouted an ambassador. Ezra Thol watched in amazement. "They've developed technology we didn't think they could achieve for centuries." On the new horizon, the Johnson family felt a slight vibration as their ship passed through the barrier. Then it was gone. "Did we make it?" asked Mary. Paul checked the status screen in their small family cabin. "Yes. We're through. We're free." Kevin cheered and hugged his parents. Throughout the fleet, similar scenes played out as 1 million humans celebrated their escape. But the journey was just beginning. Captain Barnes studied the star charts on her screen. Set course for the Ta CD system. Maximum speed. The navigator input the commands. Course set. Transit time. 6 years, 4 months. "All ships report successful barrier crossing, Captain," said the communications officer. Olivia nodded. "Send the signal to Earth. The first wave is away." On Earth, in the hidden command center, President Laura Kim received the message. She smiled at her staff. "They made it. Prepare the second wave. We launch in 6 months." In the council chambers, chaos had erupted. "Send ships after them," shouted one ambassador. "Our fastest vessels would take years to catch them," another replied. Ambassador Lirac seemed unable to speak, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in distress. Ezra Thol stepped forward. "We should open communication with Earth. We need to understand what's happening." "I agree," said the Mira Federation's senior ambassador. "This quarantine has clearly been a mistake." After a heated debate, the council voted to send Ezra Thol to Earth as their representative. Meanwhile, deep in space, the human fleet was already far beyond the council's reach. Engineer Ryan Cooper worked in the engine room of the New Dawn, monitoring the Hammond drive. "How's it holding up?" asked his assistant. Ryan checked the readings. "Perfect. We could go even faster if needed." He smiled. The council thought they were dealing with primitives. They were wrong. In a classroom section of the ship, Dr. Diana Wells taught children about their destination. "Ta City has 2 planets in the habitable zone," she explained, showing images on a screen. "We'll settle on Ta City E, which has conditions very similar to Earth." A child raised her hand. "Will we ever see Earth again?" "Maybe not us," Diana said gently. "But perhaps our children or grandchildren will visit someday." On the bridge, Captain Barnes watched as Earth's sun became just another distant star among millions. Humanity had begun its greatest journey. In her private quarters that night, Olivia wrote in her journal, "Today we became more than Earthlings. Today we became travelers among the stars." The council thought they were containing us. Instead, they set us free. The Galactic Council meeting hall was in chaos. 3 months had passed since the human ships escaped, and things had only gotten worse. "Another wave of ships has left Earth," shouted an ambassador. "That's the 3rd group. Over 4 million humans have now escaped our quarantine." Ambassador Lirac stood before the angry council, his once proud posture now bent with shame. "We underestimated them," he admitted. "Their technology advanced far faster than we predicted." "You assured us they were contained," accused the Zentari Prime Minister. "Now humans are spreading across the galaxy, completely outside our control." Diplomat Ezra Thol had just returned from her mission to Earth. She stepped forward to speak. "I have met with Earth's leaders. They have no interest in revenge against the Council. They simply wish to find new homes among the stars." "And we should believe them?" asked a skeptical ambassador. "I've seen their plans," Ezra Thol replied. "They've mapped routes to 50 star systems beyond Council space. They're not interested in our worlds or resources." The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to send military ships after the humans. Others wanted to lift the quarantine and attempt peaceful contact. In deep space, the first wave fleet continued its journey. 6 months had passed since they left Earth. On the New Dawn, Captain Olivia Barnes held a meeting with her senior staff. "Our scout ships have returned from Ta Ceti," she announced. "The planet looks even better than we hoped. Rich soil, clean water, and a climate similar to Earth." "Any dangerous wildlife?" asked her security chief. "Nothing the survey team couldn't handle," Olivia replied. "It's mostly small animals and fish. No large predators detected." Engineer Ryan Cooper shared his report next. "The Hammond drives are performing above expectations. We increased our speed by 15%. We'll reach Ta Ceti in 5 years, 9 months, sooner than planned." As the meeting ended, Olivia received a message from Earth. The fourth wave of ships was preparing to depart. Soon, nearly half of humanity would be traveling among the stars. On Earth, Ambassador Lyrax arrived under a cloud of shame. The Council had sent him to negotiate with humans directly. He was escorted to the White House, where President Laura Kim waited. "Ambassador," she greeted him coldly, "you've come a long way to see a planet you tried to imprison." Lyrax bowed his head. "A mistake we deeply regret. The Council wishes to establish peaceful relations with humanity." Laura smiled without warmth. "Interesting. You only want peace now that we've proven we don't need you." "We can still help each other," Lyrax insisted. "The Council has knowledge and resources." "That you refuse to share," Laura interrupted. "Tell your Council that Earth is willing to speak about the future, but as equals, not as subjects." At the edges of Council space, a scout ship tracked the first human fleet. The captain reported back to the Council. "The human vessels are faster than our best ships. Their technology is unlike anything we've seen. They will reach their destination years before we could intercept them." In the Great Hall, the Council voted to officially end the quarantine of Earth. Too late. Most of humanity was already gone or preparing to leave. Ezra Thull watched the proceedings with mixed feelings. "We made a terrible mistake," she told a colleague. "We saw their wars and conflicts and judged them too harshly. We failed to see their creativity, their determination, their ability to work together when faced with a common challenge." "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" her colleague asked. Ezra Thull looked at the star map showing the paths of human ships spreading outward like seeds in the wind. "Perhaps someday," she said, "but it will be on their terms, not ours. We thought we were containing a dangerous species. Instead, we scattered them across the stars where they will grow and develop beyond our influence." The Council had made its mistake, and now the galaxy would never be the same. 50 years had passed since the first human ships left Earth. The stars had changed for both humanity and the Galactic Council. On the planet New Terra in the Ta Ceti system, a grand city stood where once there had been only wilderness. Buildings of glass and metal rose among carefully preserved forests. It was home to over 5 million humans now. In the presidential palace, Heather Martinez prepared to meet an important visitor. As the leader of the United Colonies, she represented over 20 human worlds across 12 star systems. "The Council ship has entered orbit," her aide informed her. Heather nodded. She was the granddaughter of Ben Martinez, the engineer who had helped humanity escape. She had grown up hearing stories of Earth and the quarantine. "Show our guest in when she arrives," Heather said. An hour later, an old blue-skinned alien walked slowly into the meeting room. Diplomat Ezra Thull had aged, but her eyes were still sharp and curious. "Welcome to New Terra," Heather greeted her. "You've come a long way." "Thank you, President Martinez," Ezra Thull replied. "The journey was worth it to see what humans have built here." They walked together to a balcony overlooking the city. In the distance, new ships were being built in massive yards, vessels even larger than the original Exodus fleet. "Your people have thrived," Ezra Thull observed. "We have," Heather agreed. 20 colonies, all successful. We're looking to start 5 more within the next decade." Ezra Thull hesitated before speaking again. "The Council has sent me to formally request an alliance with the United Colonies." Heather smiled slightly. "Interesting. 50 years ago, you imprisoned us on our own world. Now you seek our friendship. Times change, the old diplomat said. The council has changed too. Many of the old ambassadors are gone. The younger members have different views. They moved to a conference room where Heather's advisors waited. Among them was Kevin Johnson, now an old man, and a respected colony leader. Let me be direct, Heather said. What does the council offer, and what do they want in return? Ezra Thole placed a data device on the table. The council offers trade routes, cultural exchange, and technology sharing. Technology? Kevin laughed. Our ships are faster than yours. Our medical science has advanced beyond council standards. What technology could you offer us? There are still things we could learn from each other, Ezra Thole said quietly. Heather studied the alien carefully. And what does the council want? Access to human innovation, Ezra Thole admitted. Your people have developed technologies we never imagined. And, she paused, the council fears the growing power of the United Colonies. The room was silent for a moment. So, Heather said, you quarantined us because you feared us. Now you seek alliance for the same reason. Ezra Thole nodded. I cannot deny it. But there is more to it. The galaxy is large enough for all of us. Working together, we could achieve great things. After the meeting, Heather walked with Ezra Thole through a memorial garden. Statues honored those who had led the exodus from Earth. I will consider the council's offer, Heather said. But know this, we will never be under council control. Any relationship must be as true equals. I understand, Ezra Thole replied. For what it's worth, I always believed the quarantine was wrong. That evening, as Ezra Thole's ship departed, Heather stood with Kevin Johnson, watching it disappear into the night sky. Do you think we should trust them? Kevin asked. Heather looked up at the stars, so many of them now home to human colonies. Trust must be earned, she said. But perhaps it's time to build new bridges rather than remember old walls. The council tried to contain us on one world. Instead, they forced us to claim many. Their mistake gave us the stars. Kevin smiled. They were too late to stop us. Yes, Heather agreed. Much too late. Above them, countless stars shone in the night sky. And on many of them, humanity's light now answered back.